What's up guys, this is Alex and this is the full specs sheet of the Canon R5 C, and we're going to go fast, so be prepared to pause the video if there's some specs that you like, because, well, I need to go to sleep very soon, and there's going to be some pretty nice b-roll from Canon which I'm going to use totally. By the way, here's are the timestamps. If you want to skip, you can, right? So this was just released today, so the Canon R5 C is, as you see, the R5 is in the name, but don't let that fool you. Oh no, the specs are exactly the same. There's a few caveats, and we're gonna talk about those and all the gotchas a little bit later in the video. So let's go with the specs really quickly. So we have the same sensor, image quality, and still capabilities of the R5, but with the cinema camera mode at the front. Don't let that fool you. This is a professional cinema camera first. For the video part of the camera, because when you actually switch camera and video mode, you'll actually change the entire camera. The menu is going to change. So if you go into the photo mode, you'll see exactly the same menus as the R5. And if you go into the video mode, you'll actually see the same menus just like any cinema camera from Canon, like for example the C70. Internal 8K 60p raw recording on the CF Express card. And there's a gotcha here, more on that later. There is an internal fan, so extremely less prone to overheating, of course, probably in 99% of the cases, but that would remain to be tested. No time limit. HDR mode possible with Cinema Raw Light 12-bit recording at all frame rates. Can record in a lot of other formats, XF-AVC, MP4, both at 10-bit 422. C-Log 3, of course. Second card recording function can go, well, you can actually put it off, main, proxy, sub, audio only, relay, double recording, and there's a few caveats in the speed of the writing or into the bit rate, so we'll get onto that a little bit later. 8K oversampling for 4K and 2K. There's also 4K 120p at 422 10-bit, of course without cooperating with audio, and Dual Pixel CMOS AutoFocus. So that's different from the R5, which you don't have the sound if you go into the 4K 120p mode. All that with Dual Pixel and an eye autofocus. And of course in video you have the waveform monitors, codec options, audio controls, and more. On top you have the multifunction shoe with the optional Tascam XLR adapter for up to 4 audio channels. So we can compare a little bit with cameras that are a little bit close to it. Of course the R5, but also the C70, which is kind of the little brother sister. Let's put that on the screen. You have full frame sensor. The sensor is the same as R5 and R5C. On the C70 you have a super 35mm sensor and it's a 10 megapixel. Both have RF mounts, 8K category. Of course the R5 does do it in 30 FPS and it's limited. R5C, you can go all as you want, 30 or 60 FPS. There's still a little caveat there. And the C70 does not do 8K, but it does 4K very well. Time limits, 30 minutes for the first, no limits for the others. Audio, of course, there's an audio jack, the normal one, and the R5. On both R5C and C70, there are multiple options. So the multifunction shoe for the R5C, and of course, 2 built-in mini XLRs for the C70. There's no filters for the R5s, and I'm gonna say R5s plural. And of course in the C70 there is a 2 to 10 stop internal filter, ND filter. There's time code in the latest and in the C70 IBIS. So here's a difference and a gotcha. There's an IBIS in the R5 only. Electronic image stabilization, sure, in all of them. What about the MSRP? Well, here are the prices, and the price go with the weight. So the more it's heavy, the more it costs. Here's a little bit of specs from the Canon spec sheets. So you have everything for the R5C right here, the different CMOS, the different lens that are compatible. Of course, it's RF, so it's still a self-cleaning unit. So that is actually pretty cool. So for example, when you turn on the camera, it's gonna shake the sensor. Every dust piece will fall, which is so useful, so useful. So that's why we don't call the Canon's dust magnet. So in the specs, image stabilization in still photo, you have IS, that's it, no IBIS, and the video IS is electronic. and you have a small crop when you enable that of a 1.1. There's also a high mode of the electronics image stabilization, which will crop even more, so that's going to crop to 1.43. Here's all the video recording size and frame rates, and you can see, of course, for example, this is of course the 8K raw light, and you can have the bit rate right here on every single one of them, and this will work with the CF Express card but not with the SD card. And this is another gotcha, of course. You are limited to the bit rate of 650 megabits per second or less for recording on the SD card. So here's the page 2 of this. So you have different formats, of course. MP4 here mostly. And here's is about how much time you can actually record with the CF Express card. So you can see here they have an example with a 512 gigabit card. So how much that cost? A lot. There's also 2 terabytes card, about $900 I think. You have to check this out. And here's the same recording times but on the SD card. Of course, you can record in one format on the CF Express card and into another format on the SD card. So there are different modes here. What about the photo mode? Well, you switch the camera into the photo mode and you have exactly a R5 except for IBIS. So the ISO go up to 51,200 ISO, and you can expand it if you want more grain, I guess. 20 FPS, all the same thing. So you have autofocus version 2. There's a few things. For example, they added the vehicle detection that is in the R3. So they added that. So motorcycle and cars, they added that into the R5C. It's also a little bit different Wi-Fi, I think. It's not entirely clear, but there's Wi-Fi 5 gigahertz in that camera. So what are the caveats and gotchas? Well, of course, I already told you, no IBIS. So this 8-stop, I think, 8-stop stabilization is gone. So you're gonna have to, well, cope with probably stabilization into your lens, because that's it. About that 8K 60 FPS, well, this is of course internal on the CF Express card, but you also need an external power source. So it won't work just on battery, probably because it's pulling so much juice. I also wrote to Ninja V, the company Atomos, if that was compatible with update for the Ninja V Plus. While editing the video, I got an email today, and here is what the rep had to say. In addition to 8K at 30 FPS, the Ninja V Plus offers support for 6K at 50 FPS and 60 FPS. The Ninja V and of course the 5 Plus offers support for 6K at up to 30 FPS and 3K at up to 60 FPS. So no 8K 60 FPS. Back to the video. In the video mode, the 4K 120 FPS, 42210-bit, it's not clear if it's the version 1 or version 2 of the autofocus system, so it's not clear. So in one of the video by Tier Zero, a content creation company, they had some really actually cool examples, and they made like a youngster video with the slow motion and why do you need 8K, and I'm gonna show a few images here which are pretty funny. And in one of the video, the guy was taking picture and the other one was looking at the pictures as is. So he was taking a picture and was probably wire transfer to the computer, but in real time. But it's not clear if you need or not the Wi-Fi transmitter. So that's not clear entirely, because I know we can control the camera. I'm doing it right now with my phone and I can take pictures and have a wire, but I don't know if it's working with wireless. And I tried with my computer. It's an old computer though, my laptop. I couldn't connect to it, so maybe because it's too old. So there's a few things that we don't know. For example, the rolling shutter, how is it going to be? We don't know. And also the longevity of the batteries, or the battery that you put it in. That's going to be very interesting. Obviously you can power it up with an external power source. That's going to work very well. Also on the video side, you have time codes and dual ISO gain. That's going to be very cool for all the filmmakers. So for who this camera is, it's a little bit cheaper than the C70 and a little bit higher than the R5, and you have more cinematic because it's cinema first. You have more options there. So it's pretty interesting, that small body and so light. I mean, I think the weight is about twice for the C70. That's very interesting. So you can put it on a drone maybe and just fly it off. If you're a filmmaker that is just starting, maybe that's a good option. There's one thing though, if you go into the 8K realms, well, be prepared to chug your computer to the throat, because you won't be editing in 8K. You'll probably digest those files in proxies, or use proxy files and generate proxy files a lot. So that's it, I need to go to bed. So take care guys, see you in the next video.